Hi, this is Derek. In this video I will be talking about The Exorcist. I have reviewed this movie before, but I've mentioned before, you can review a movie more than once. And I thought I'd give a review for this movie another chance. Go into more detail about what I think about the movie, my own reaction to the movie, things like that. I do anticipate this to be a fairly lengthy video, I would think. I do have some notes written down, which I don't usually do, but just to keep my scattered brain on track here. So I'll have that. But yeah, I thought today is October 30th. It is Devil's Night, so I would say it's fairly apt to be reviewing this film. If I do repeat things I've said in my previous review, I apologize for that. But this is my second shot. This is my story. If this is my story, this is my confession, my penance. This is The Exorcist. Sorry, I got a little Martin Sheen Apocalypse Now-ish there. But anyway, this is my review of The Exorcist. I thought I'd begin showing some of the home video releases, show off my Exorcist collection, sort of, because it's a movie that's been in my life a long time. I've seen it so many times, I can't tell you how many times I've seen this movie. So yeah, I'll show you what I have, and of course the very first edition I have here is a VHS tape. This is one of the cool clamshell ones. You know how they used to make these? Or they're like the coolest thing ever, until DVD came along. Kind of ruined that, but these were always cool to have. This is the 25th anniversary special edition. Came with special features, actually, as you see here. Probably not too well, but comes with the Fear of God, the making of The Exorcist, and 3 theatrical trailers, which isn't bad. You can see it's kind of in bad condition here, but whatever. This also came with, like, I think a lobby card, which I don't have anymore, but it's a nice addition to have. So yeah, this is the first home video edition of The Exorcist that I ever owned in my collection, so I still have it, so that's pretty cool. Also, I do have essentially the same version of this, but on DVD. The less impressive clamshell, or not clamshell, but like snapper case, one of these. But it is kind of cool how they extend out a little bit, so we have that there. That's kind of cool. Some quotes here. And the same special features. They had the Fear of God. Had audio commentary with William Friedkin and William Peter Blatty, and some alternate sound effects and sound effects tests in this, and different interviews, storyboards, things like that. So for the time, I think this DVD came out the same time as that VHS did. But for the time, definitely had, I would say, fairly impressive special features and pretty impressive presentation. But then, of course, that was 1998. I think that DVD came out 1999. But shortly after, of course, as we know, and what they discuss in some of the supplemental footage is that they were planning to re-release the movie, and they did, of course, as the version you've never seen. So that was also a fairly big release. The version you've never seen here, same poster art, which has become iconic with the film. This great image of Father Merrin, Max von Sydow, standing in the light, the beam of light coming from the room, which is really cool. But the version you've never seen here, scariest movie of all time. Again, same kind of snapper kind of case thing, but kind of cool. And not really much special features. But this is the version you've never seen. Had a different footage and things added to it, and I'll go into that a little bit as well. What's kind of cool about the version you've never seen, I'll show you something else I have, which I have this little faux leather bound book here with the Batman symbol on it. I keep my movie tickets, so I have actually, it's kind of cool, my movie stub from, I went to the theater in 2000 to see it, so I'll show you here. Well, this is something else. Who is that? Mimi Rogers? Cool. Where is it here? Aha, the Exorcist, as you'll see here. Saw it on September 22nd, 2000. Adult accompaniment. very cool that I still have that. And $9.40 for a ticket then. Not bad. Still around that price. So I still have my Exorcist ticket. So I saw it on the big screen. That was pretty cool. But then, for a long time, had those DVDs, but of course Blu-ray came out, so I had to get it on Blu-ray. One of my favorite movies of all time. So I wanted to see how it fared on Blu-ray, restoration-wise and special features-wise. So there is the extended director's cut and the theatrical version in this digibook here. I think I've shown this digibook in another video, but it's kind of weird, like the stuff is upside down in there, so it's like you open it up and it's like, hey, what's going on here, you know? But whatever. But yeah, so I had that. Then, of course, most recently they did have the 40th anniversary edition, which I think is a pretty cool edition because, again, you'll have this edition here, which keeps the iconic image, but they're like, you know, we're running low on ideas of how to repackage this. So the 40th anniversary has the stairs, which I think is pretty cool because the stairs, I mean, they've become a character in the movie itself, really. So I think it's kind of cool that they showcase the stairs here, and it's not a bad set. Like it has just like its own separate Blu-ray in here, but it also has an excerpt from the Friedkin Connection, William Friedkin's autobiography, just specifically showing stories about the Exorcist itself, and it has nice pictures in it as well. It's pretty good. It has the same special features as the other digibook edition, except it has a bonus disc that has new stuff on it, which, you know, not too bad, but this is the kind of thing that you get mainly for the packaging, I'd say. It's like a collectible. So there's that. So I thought that's a pretty good edition, too. So those are all the editions I have. I mean, if it's at all of interest, I do also have Tubular Bells on vinyl here, which is kind of cool. Whatever. And of course, I do have the book by William Peter Blatty, an excellent book. This is here one of the most terrifying novel ever written, which those are fighting words, but if they're going to say scariest movie of all time, why not most terrifying novel ever written as well? So, you know, I wish I had a more impressive version to show you. You know, first edition signed by William Peter Blatty. No, that'd be kind of cool though. But this is actually the 40th anniversary edition, where Blatty did actually make some revisions to the novel, added some things that were kind of, I guess, bugging him a little bit. So he added some things to the novel. So that's kind of cool. So yeah, that's my collection, and it's you know, neat to see its progression, and you see how they kind of market it. I do like how they always keep on all these editions William Peter Blatty's The Exorcist, so almost like what they would do Mario Puzo's The Godfather. So they give credit to the author because it is a close movie to the novel. So I do, you know, respect them for keeping that kind of respect. And of course they'll always note the scariest movie of all time, which is, I would say, fair enough. Because, I mean, really, you look at any list that'll say the best horror movies of all time, the scariest movies of all time, you'll see The Exorcist top those lists, and it's kind of hard to argue with that, really. You know, it's just almost obligatory, because it is such a scary film, and it did affect the world in such a way, and it still does. I mean, the movie really definitely holds up. And it is such a scary movie, and you know, it is one of the best horror movies, if not the best horror movie, if you even want to call it a horror movie, because I know there would be a debate about that as well, because you know, I would say if they were aiming to do it as a horror movie, you have a certain idea in your mind of what a horror movie would be, and what the intentions behind making a horror movie would be, if that makes sense. Like, if it's a horror movie, kind of the intention is, hey, we're going to make something that's going to scare the shit out of people, so we're specifically making this type of movie to make people scared, right? Which I wouldn't say necessarily is what the intention of the film is, not necessarily at least. So if it's a horror film, it's a horror film incidentally instead of intentionally, if that makes any sense, because really where it lies here is telling this drama, this drama story, and doing it in such a way that it's absolutely genuine. I mean, absolutely, because I was just watching this last night, and it really feels much, in the patented William Friedkin kind of way, such a perfect choice of a director to direct William Peter Blatty's novel, which his novel, it was somewhat based on a true story. By all claims, it is fairly accurate to a certain extent to the real events that took place. Not that with this movie they marketed it in such a way that, oh, this is based on a true story, this really happened, which you see with like every fucking horror movie lately, which just, it's stupid. Like, this is based on a true story, The Conjuring is based on a true story. Okay, I don't know, whatever. But with this movie, it definitely doesn't need to say it that way, because the movie doesn't need to say that, because it feels real. So in that William Friedkin fashion, it does feel kind of like, in a similar sense to what the French Connection was going for with its cop story. It does feel very much documentary-like. So it does feel like this is something that could really happen, that is really happening in front of us for those 2 hours, or for those 2 hours and 12 minutes, depending on which version of the movie you're watching. So that is absolutely key to the movie. And you could definitely say that this is a fairly slow-moving movie, but that is part of what makes it work so well. Because this isn't a movie that cheats. This isn't a movie... again, it's not specifically set out with the specific intention to just make you scared as shit, which happens anyway, for most people, I would argue. But really what it boils down to, it will show these shocking things, these terrifying things, in an attempt to provoke you into thinking about the larger scheme of things, the larger themes of the movie, which do boil down to faith and to hope in this world. There is evil in this world. That's what this movie challenges. It'll show you very much that evil exists, but there's good to fight it, which is a comforting thought. But with the movie, again, I was watching it recently, and what really kind of struck me is that with the slow pace that it works at, it does very much develop its characters very, very well, and it's structured in such a way that we meet all these characters, we know certain pieces of information about them as the plot moves along, because the primary character, of course, would be Chris MacNeil, played by Ellen Burstyn, and her daughter Reagan, played by Linda Blair. They're the primary characters, where the heart of the story is, where everything else in this story is surrounding it. But we do have that opening with Father Merrin in Iraq, and uncovering his archaeological dig, and for that section of the film, I mean, it feels like it must be like a 10-minute section of the film where we almost feel kind of alienated, because one, if we're not hearing any dialogue, it's not in English, so that kind of puts you off guard a little bit, and we're just wondering what is going on here. What is the significance of this character? And it's showing him, and we do get the sense that he has an important part. And what's great is, like, they set him up, but we don't see him again until like the last act of the movie, which is quite a bit of time away, but it keeps that in our head, so we know that this character is significant, so it plants those seeds. But then when it gets to the Chris MacNeil character, we learn things about her. We learn about the situation, how she's an actress, and how she has gone through a divorce, and we wonder how much that has affected Reagan. She doesn't seem too affected. I mean, the thing is, for all that we end up experiencing later in the movie, for all the terrible things, what's so drastic about seeing that is that Reagan, she seems like such a perfectly nice and well-adjusted little girl. There's that opening scene with her. She's talking about horses, like, oh, I saw a beautiful horse today, whatever. So she seems like such a normal, well-adjusted kid. And that's kind of how it, again, gets us to think, well, what's really going on here? Then, of course, we do meet the Father Karras, Jason Miller, that character, and we learn more about him as well. And it's almost become a cliche in these types of movies, but I feel they really earn it with developing his character as well. He is the priest who is losing his faith, but what's very interesting about this character and how he does exemplify the entire theme of the movie. He's both a psychiatrist and a priest, which is very interesting to think of. So, there's matters of the spirit and there's matters of the mind. What we find out about him, he's just exhausted from this whole thing. He's giving care to the Jesuits in his congregation. But what their psychiatric sessions amount to are more matters of the spirit, which he just becomes exhausted with, because that's not what he's signed up for, basically. So he finds it just absolutely exhausting. So that's tested his faith quite a bit, and as well as his mother, who lives in New York. The movie takes place in Georgetown, Washington. So he's away from his mother, who's sick and frail, lives on her own. She dies. He feels guilt over that. He has the friendship with Father Dyer, coping with that. Their friendship is tested as well, because it's like, hey, come on, stay with the priesthood here. I know it's tough, blah, 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 all that stuff. That's all really well done. So the movie takes its time in developing the characters, which I really liked. And while I was watching last night, and what really occurred to me is that really this movie feels like, at least for a very good portion of it, feels almost like it is this medical drama about a mother and her daughter who is deeply troubled, and she's trying to find out why, and she's trying to help her first with putting her on medication, and then going through more serious surgery, and just nothing's helping, and so there's a drama to that, and I paid close attention to the time frame in the movie. I was watching the director's cut for watching it most recently. We have our suspicions. We have the weird things that happen, little hints, and of course we know what ultimately the movie amounts to. But the first time we actually see like a full-on, full-fledged, right in front of us possession is like 50 minutes into the movie. And like, really think about that. Most horror movies, that's like they're almost over at 52 minutes. Most horror movies maybe clock in, hour and a half or so, something like that. So I mean that's very interesting how they kept it all at a simmering point where there's no cheating in this movie, which is what I like about it. There's no cheap shots, so it keeps that very real kind of feeling to it, where it does feel like something that would happen in real life, because needless to say, if something like this were happening, of course, every single medical, psychological aspect to what's troubling Reagan would be exhausted before they'd even think about, oh yeah, demonic possession. That must be it. So that I feel is extremely genuine about this movie, because other movies, about possession, you feel like they jump to that conclusion almost too easily. But here, it does feel very real. Yeah, that's the furthest thing from the characters' minds. But it's a very slow progression. Like, we see that Reagan saying weird things at first. She's playing with the Ouija board, talking to Captain Howdy, her special friend. And so that's where she's talking about her bed shaking, and then things get weirder and weirder. Like, there's that party scene, where Chris has all their friends over, and they're all enjoying their night. There's the astronaut who's at the party. They see Reagan has entered the room. She looks at him dead-eyed. She says, "You're going to die up there." Pisses the floor. That's a very creepy scene. But again, it's not something that who would say, "Oh yeah, demonic possession." No, you wouldn't say that. That just wouldn't jumped to your mind. So again, I mean, if you were to show this to somebody who had never heard of this movie, yeah, it would kind of play out like a medical drama where this mother's so concerned for her child, which that concern is so genuine. Like the way Ellen Burstyn plays this character is just such a great performance. You know, where we see her, you know, slowly but surely, you know, start losing her mind over how concerned she is with her daughter's health, because I mean, it's just something unthinkable that would happen. So it's not like this immediate, oh, we got to get a fucking exorcist. No, I mean, when they finally, you know, go through everything, go through all the possible psychological, possibilities, put her on Ritalin. The doctors sit around, you know, and they're like, oh yeah, well, you know, it's a lesion, it's a disturbance in the mind, it's a overreaction to depression, possibly. So there's one thing that they do mention. Finally, they're like, okay, well, what about this? Kind of as a shock treatment. Are you particularly religious? Because you could get an exorcist. So that's, you know, kind of their last resort, and that's exactly what works about this movie. The exorcism is the absolute last resort to this increasingly horrifying situation, with Reagan becoming possessed, and even that transformation is just so gradual that when it reaches the point where we all have this idea of the possessed Reagan in our mind, but it's so gradual the way she gets to that, that, you know, we're sucked into the movie at that point. So again, there's no cheating. It's not like, you know, bling, possessed face. No, it's, you know, first we see, you know, the scenes where she, you know, has like bags under her eyes a little bit. Then like the next couple of scenes, particularly with you know, that horrifying scene where, you know, she's has the crucifix. She's masturbating with the crucifix. You know, let Jesus fuck you. You know, you see that she's starting to get scratches on her face, like self-inflicted scratches on the face, and then by the end of it, you know, she's like all crusty and green and disgusting looking. That is just so gradual. That's, you know, something that's really, really effective with the movie. So it draws you in that way. So it again, there's no cheating of any kind. It feels very much like this could happen, which we would expect no less from William Friedkin, who very much has this documentary style to him. Definitely, I mean, with this movie, he's very well known for being kind of a method director. Name any kind of story you'd hear about this movie, about the insane lengths that he went to get reactions out of the actors, like firing guns off in set. And there's a very well-known story about, you know, how in the scene where Chris is slapped by her daughter and she falls to the ground, they had Ellen Burstyn, you know, hooked up to like this rig, and, you know, they had done it plenty of times, and Ellen Burstyn was like, okay, you're hurting me, can you like settle the fuck down or whatever. Then he's like, okay, talks to the stuntman, next shot, give it to her. Boom, what you see on film, genuine reaction from Ellen Burstyn of horrible pain, which is, you know, maybe going a little bit too far, but it absolutely works. Like, you don't see that kind of, you know, guerrilla style, go for broke type of directing. You know, also what he did in this movie, he did cast real priests in the supporting roles, most notably Father Dyer, who plays Jason Miller's character, Father Karras' best friend. Real priests, and also, again, method directing the scene at the end, you know, where he's completely distraught. Apparently, William Friedkin, according to Dyer, slapped him across the face so they could get a proper reaction out of him. So again, kind of method directing. So there's all kinds of things like that. I mean, while, okay, objectively, you would say that director's fucking insane, but at the same time, look at the results. You got a great movie with absolutely genuine performances out of it. So I mean, who's to say? I mean, we don't really see, not too much anymore, especially with not like horror movies or anything like that. Such limits, and, you know, refrigerating the sets to make, you know, the breath come out. Meanwhile, today you could do that digitally. So, you know, this was such an ambitious project, such an insane thing to do, really, and he went to such lengths to do it properly, to do it effectively, which I think is part of the reason why the movie works so well, and why it is as revered as it is today. It definitely doesn't cheat in any way to uh, make it as good as it is, as genuine as it is. So I absolutely appreciate that. And aside from that, I do feel that the performances are great. Again, I think Ellen Burstyn, just one of her best performances. I mean, she's an Oscar-winning actress. Alice doesn't live here anymore. Requiem for a Dream. Just a legend, but this is absolutely one of her top performances. And Linda Blair, of course. I mean, I know there's probably some controversy because, I guess at the time people didn't realize that her voice for the demonic scenes was being dubbed over by Mercedes McCambridge. Kind of like a unique voice, and not male, not. Well, sorry, I scared myself. But you know what I mean, right? So they thought it was her doing that, which again kind of attests to the authenticity of this movie and how you don't even realize at the time that it's a dub. But even so, I mean, she just gives such a great performance because she's there. That's her. I would not devalue her performance in any way, shape, or form. I think she's absolutely fantastic, as is Jason Miller. I mean, the story goes a lot of actors sought out this role as the Father Karras character, but freakin' as he is, he did want someone relatively unknown. Absolutely perfect casting with Jason Miller, who he does have this intense face. He really does. I mean, you can really see that. And this is, he never really, I wouldn't say is a prolific actor. Like in his career, he passed a little bit of a while ago. And he was in the third film. But I mean, this particular role, just so perfect for him. So well done, so genuine, which is what I really love about the role. And of course, Max von Sydow, who's excellent in the film, excellent in everything, as Father Merrin, the Exorcist himself, who comes to save the day. Absolutely fantastic in his role. I think he's just, again, perfect. Like, I think a lot of people will attest to the fact that, or admit to the fact that, when they saw the movie, they didn't realize it was makeup. But I guess he's kind of an actor that gives off an aura of always being like sort of like an old soul. If you look at something, I think it must have been from the 50s, The Seventh Seal, 1957, that movie came out. He does very much feel like an old soul. It must have been maybe in his 30s when that movie came out. Now in the 70s, 1973, with The Exorcist, old man, right? But then you look forward into some other roles, like maybe some more notable roles, like, okay, I don't know what, Judge Dredd somehow comes to mind. Awakenings, Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, which he was nominated for an Oscar for. He looks like he looks the fucking same as he did in The Exorcist. So what's going on here? Well, that would be the great magic of Dick Smith. What a legend. And he recently passed. What a fucking legend, Dick Smith. Absolute genius when it came to the art of makeup. Absolutely convincing with the old man makeup with Max von Sydow, as well as the demonic makeup, needless to say. And just everything, from the actor standpoint, from the director's standpoint, from the special effects, the stunts, as well as the sound. I mean, the sound in this movie is just breathtaking. Like, my ritual with this movie is, okay, whenever I watch it, I gotta turn the volume down, turn the volume up as loud as possible, and turn the lights off, so I get the full experience, basically. When you have the sound on, when you have the surround sound on, this movie's amazing, because at least with the theatrical edition, I know with the extended director's cut version you've never seen, they add some more music to give it a little bit more of effect, which I think works fine, but I do like the fact that this is more about ambient sounds, as opposed to kind of, I don't know, trying to provoke us with a musical score into being scared, because the movie certainly doesn't need that. It doesn't need any kind of extra provocation when it comes to the effect that it has on us. So you'll hear like kind of like in like the Iraq scenes, you'll hear like the buzzing and the rustling in the attic in the Georgetown scenes, and just when the scene with the holy water, right? The horrible sounds that come from Reagan, just nuts, like whatever. Just so well done. The sound in this movie, I think, probably the best achievement in sound design, sound mixing that we've seen on film. So endlessly impressed with that. Endlessly impressed with this movie, and again, the acting's great. And I forgot to mention Lee J. Cobb, brilliant as Detective Kinderman, who became the subject of The Exorcist 3. Not the same actor. George C. Scott would play that. But the acting from Lee J. Cobb is just brilliant. Like he is a very charming type of character. There's that great scene where he's just speaking with Chris, and he admits that he's a fan of hers because he's like a film buff, which is cool to have a film buff character in the movie, but not in a too overly obvious way. And he's like, "Oh, my wife would really like an autograph." Like, what's her name? I lied. It's for me. I thought that was cute. Anyway, I just think everything about this movie comes together perfectly. One of the all-time classics, really. And one thing that I guess I should mention. I'm just looking at my notes here. There is the other version of the movie. Well, technically, I guess there's 3 versions in total. We have the original theatrical version, as well as the version you've never seen, and what's pegged as the director's cut, which is essentially the version you've never seen, but tweaked a little bit. So I mean, there's definitely things that they add to that version that I feel are pretty good. For one thing, what they add in the beginning of the film, well, at least in the earlier stages, to kind of enhance like the medical drama aspect of it, is they do have some extended scenes with Reagan acting up a little bit more. Like we see her in the doctor's office, just kind of acting really strange, just like just bobbing her head around, and Chris is speaking to the doctor, and he's like, she's swearing quite a bit. She's like, why is she swearing? What? Tell me, what did she say? Well, she advised me to keep my hands away from her goddamn cunt. And then you see Chris's reaction to that, and she almost has to laugh at that. Like, are you serious? So that was, I feel kind of a good addition if you've already seen the movie before, if that makes any sense. But I think, a scene like that maybe gives a little bit away a little bit too early, if that makes any sense, because there is a scene later on where we first hear her swear. She's like, "Get your fucking hands off me," and then spits in the doctor's face. So I think that is a more shocking scene and a better kind of reveal of how her behavior is beginning to change. But, if you've seen the movie a million times like I have, then I think that observation scene is a good addition. Also, of course, there is infamous spider walk scene, which probably, out of all the added scenes, that's the one that people talk about the most, because it is the more shocking and special effects based scene of the movie. I think ultimately the movie works fine without it, but same basis as with the doctor's office scene. It's a fine addition if you've seen the movie a million times before. But like, for example, if you've seen the scene on its own, there's certain aspects to it that are added to, or I guess certain aspects of it that are cut a little bit, because the way the scene is, Chris learns of Burke Denning's death, and she reacts to that, and then afterwards, her live-in assistant, I guess, I forget her name, the character's name, but she's like, "Hey, what's that?" And it's Reagan coming down the stairs. She's upside down, spider walk, and then she turns over, and she's like sticking her tongue out, like, and again, Chris freaking out and screaming, blah blah blah. In the actual edited-in version of the director's cut and of the version you've never seen, it plays out differently, and I think it works a lot better than the way this scene individually stands. Uh, she barely has any time to react to Burke Denning's death, and then what happens is the scene moves a lot quicker in the final edited version. So we see that, and we're taken off guard by that. We're shocked by that, and then what happens, as opposed to kind of the goofy snake tongue kind of thing, we see her open her mouth and make a very terrifying noise, kind of noise, and blood coming out of her mouth, which is very creepy. Then, boom, cut to black. Very, very effective scene, which is very scary, actually. Everything about this movie is pretty scary, actually. So I thought that worked well, as opposed to the scene as it originally was. So I could kind of imagine why, at least originally, back in 1973, why William Friedkin wouldn't want to have included that. Because I guess the scene as it originally was a little too tongue-in-cheek. But, I think he edited it well enough that it fits well with the movie. I don't think it, hurts or harms the movie in any way, really. I mean, it just adds to it a little bit. So I think that's fine, too. And there's also the break scene where, in the original theatrical cut, during the exorcism, which, the exorcism itself is just such an intense scene. Like, it goes on. I feel like that whole segment, that whole final act, that's like a 20-minute act of the movie. Like, they really go into it. It's not like just like a quick, cross, holy water, demon be gone. No, they're really fucking into it. So, needless to say, these guys would have to take a break. And they do show that in the theatrical cut, but what you'll see in the original theatrical version of that is that they're just sitting there, and it's a nice quiet moment, and I think it's a necessary moment where we need to take a little bit of a breather, because they're showing some intense stuff, needless to say. But in the extended version of it, they actually do discuss a little bit. You have Father Karras just kind of finally asking what's essentially been on our mind the whole movie. Why this girl? Why would this force, this demon, of all people, of all beings on this earth, decide to possess this little innocent girl? And I think the answer that Marin provides is quite eloquent. He says it's to see us as animal and ugly, to see the disgusting nature in ourselves, to reject the possibility that God could love us. So I think that really hits really hard. So I think that's actually a really good addition to the movie. I think of all the scenes that were added, I do think that's the best one, because I think maybe we needed a little something like that to at least acknowledge what has been on our mind for the whole movie. So there is that, and I thought that was pretty well done. A good addition to the movie. Then there's the ending, which that's something that's been discussed widely too. Like, as the movie ends itself, everything's been resolved. Exorcism complete. Father Karras out the fucking window. Father Marin on the ground. Everything's been resolved. Reagan is back to normal. Father Dyer's hanging around. Gives him a little pendant. And that's the end of the movie. He's just kind of walking around, then boom, title card, The Exorcist, the end, basically. But they linger around a little bit in the extended edition, where Father Dyer, for some reason, in this version, he gives the pendant back to Chris McNeil, which I thought, okay. And then also he meets up with Lieutenant or Detective Kinderman, and they kind of do like a mirror of the earlier scene between Kinderman and Karras when they first meet as well. They have a little joke about, hey, what movie's playing? Oh, it's Wuthering Heights with Groucho Marx as Heathcliff, and as I forget the character's name. Oh, I failed literature 101. Lucille Ball is in it too. So I've seen that one. It's like, oh, another one, blah, blah, blah. Whatever. And it's like the Casablanca ending. Like, oh, I have a feeling this is going to be the start of a good friendship kind of scene. But it's kind of a calming down scene, which if kind of like sort of like the history of the re-release of this movie, and kind of what seems to be for decades, two and a half decades, that William Peter Blatty and William Friedkin kind of argued over a little bit, was like, how much do we really need that? And Blatty was very adamant about keeping that scene in because, we need a little, let's see, everything's okay, good remains, everything's going to be okay, basically, kind of ending. But I think maybe it lingers around a little too much. It's almost an unwelcome kind of lingering. I would agree with, Friedkin's original intention, which was that, people will get it, and I feel that's accurate with the original ending. So I think the theatrical version ends the best way possible, ends the movie the best way possible, in my opinion. Really, when it all amounts to it, I feel the definitive version is the version that was released in 1973, what audiences saw and were shocked and provoked by in 1973. So, the director's cut, the version never seen, whatever you want to call it, it's a nice, different version to watch. I think a nice alternate version, but that's what it is. It's an alternate version. So ultimately, I do think the theatrical version is the best. So if someone were to ask me, I've never seen The Exorcist before, what version should I watch? I'd say go with the theatrical. That's my preferred version of the movie, in my opinion. I know some people will probably prefer the director's cut. It's nice to have a little bit more, but whatever. So I mean, there's all that. So there's a lot of different versions. I think there's maybe even 4 actually. Like I think with the newest edition, the 40th edition, I think they might have tweaked it just a little bit. Maybe it's my imagination. I don't know. I've seen the movie so many times, but what they definitely tweaked for the most recent version, at least, was the subliminals. Like in the director's cut, well, no, more specifically in the version you've never seen, what they kind of included is like a little kind of like a gag, I guess, were these subliminal little cuts. Like you'd see the demonic face, like the white demonic face, which you do have a fair amount of in the original theatrical version. Like there's that great scene where Father Karras is having a nightmare about his mother because she had just died, so he's guilty over that. He's having that dream where, like you can hear him. There's no sound in the dream, but you can like hear him like going like, which is kind of cool, like because that it feels like it's like a real dream kind of, which I thought they did pretty well. But you see like the flash of like the demon face going like. And that's pretty cool. But they add more of that. So you'll see, like, just randomly, like, there's that scene where just after Burke Dennings had died, you see, like, over the oven, you see, like, the little face just pop up like that. It's kind of silly. And, you'll see at the very end, when Karras is about to jump out the window, you see, like, a subliminal picture of his mother's face in the window. So there's stuff like that, and I feel like that's somewhat unnecessary, but whatever. So that's part of the reason why I prefer the theatrical as well. But it's kind of nice to like keep actively watching the movie. Pay close attention, and you'll be rewarded with these subliminal messages or whatever. But whatever. So yeah, I mean, I definitely pay close attention to the movie. It's a movie I've seen so many times. I first saw it when I was very young. It very much affected me. Because, I don't think, like a 7 or 8 year old should watch this movie. I sincerely don't. Way too young to see this movie. So it did scar me quite a bit. But, I think part of the reason why I've seen it so many times is that, I'm always willing to confront my fears. There's nothing to fear but fear itself. So you gotta get back on the horse, man. Watch the movie again, confront it. And, now I can say sorry, I'm like sweaty here, but now I can say it's one of my favorite movies. But definitely, I mean, sorry, my hair is just all messed up here. But, yeah, I mean, I first saw it probably when I was 7 or 8 years old. It absolutely traumatized me. I found it terrifying. I really did. I was raised Catholic, so I somewhat believed in that stuff, and because the movie felt so genuine, because it did feel like documentary, like I felt like what I was watching was real. So it very much affected me, and for years I felt traumatized by it. I would have nightmares about this movie, such horrible nightmares, and up all night. I'd be up, just terrified. I didn't want to go to sleep, so I was absolutely traumatized by that. And kind of around that same time in my life, I started getting how you get like sleep paralysis. I didn't know what that was at the time, so I thought I was like fucking possessed by the devil or something like that. So that really scared me too. And I remember it's kind of a funny thing to say, but what I would do if I were scared, late at night, in my bed, didn't want to sleep because The Exorcist scared me so much. I remember I had put like a tape recorder up to the TV, and I got the audio from Aliens, the movie Aliens, obviously. So I had that on an audio cassette. So I'd listen to the movie Aliens, because back in those days, back in the mid '90s, you know, kids didn't have like computers to watch movies on, didn't have TVs in their room or shit like that. So I would like listen to Aliens on my Walkman because I was too scared of The Exorcist. That's an interesting story. I don't know, but whatever. But I think it's important to confront your fears, and I'm glad I did, because I do think it's the Exorcist is one of the best movies of all time. Forget the scariest movie of all time. This is one of the most effective and provocative films of all time. This movie was a phenomenon in 1973, and its reputation still holds true. I think the movie still holds up very, very well. And I do think it still has a lasting effect. And needless to say, I mean, you will get people who will poke holes in the movie, will make fun of it, will make, funny comments about, the absurd nature of the movie itself. And, in part, I mean, we laugh so that we don't scream about it, and, kind of like a defense mechanism, or maybe some, I'm sure there's people who like genuinely don't think it's scary at all, who really don't care, don't see what's so scary about it. Say, well, what is it? We found that scary. That's stupid. You have people like that. But I really think this movie stands true for the power of film, which is. Films, they are entertainment, but they're more than that. They are art, and art can feed the soul, and it can provoke the soul, and it can really, make you think about your own spirituality, about the way you see the world. I mean, Friedkin has said this many times of the film, and you can apply it to any number of films, but you get out of it what you bring into it. So if you feel the world is a dark place and a horrible place, and there is evil in the world, and we are all just spinning on this spinning on this globe, and there's nothing we can really do, then yeah, you'll get like a negative response from the movie. You'll feel that evil exists, and evil somewhat wins. I mean, the two priests die. Maybe the demon gets the last laugh. Maybe not. But if you feel that there is such a thing as hope, even if you're not religious, I wouldn't say this is a movie where if you find any kind of hope about it, if you find any kind of victory in what these priests were able to do for this girl, how they're able to save her soul, I wouldn't say you have to be religious about it. I would say you do have a positive outlook in the world, perhaps at the very least agnostic viewpoint, about the world, about faith. So it brings those types of questions into play, brings that provocation into play, where how do you really see the world? How do you see how evil is dealt with? How abstract of a concept as it is. So, that's what's interesting about the movie. Again, you have that main character, the main priest character, Jason Miller, as a priest who's both, a scholar in very, very real, tangible elements of the human mind in psychiatry, which, that's part of the reason why, if there weren't exorcisms any longer, we know about mental illness. We know about the diseases of the mind. So if 100 years ago, 200 years ago, there was an exorcism for somebody who just simply would have been schizophrenic, then that's, valuable information. So he has that aspect to the character, but he has the religious aspect to the character, which is tested. So he's, a religious figure who's sort of losing his faith, and then that becomes tested when this encounter with this possessed girl comes into play in the movie. And at the same time, you have the mother character, Chris McNeil, played by Ellen Burstyn, who admits in this movie she's not religious at all. But then when it finally comes to it and she realizes, yeah, you know what, I think my daughter is possessed by the fucking devil or a demon or something. So you have this faithless character who finally comes to believe in something out of this world, and based in religion, and seeks religious help because of it. Intermingle with this religious figure who's turning into a faithless person. So I think Blatty called that the great irony of his characters, or whatever. So I thought that was really well done in the movie, and again, it speaks for the whole themes of the movie. The whole theme of the movie is what's something that can be explained, and what's something that's completely out of this world, which is the demon, which we would learn later on, and it is mentioned in the novel and in the sequels of the movie, that the demon is not the devil, which the demon says they're the devil. Hi, I'm Father Karras. What's your name? I'm the devil. Now kindly undo these straps. No, it's not really the devil. It's a demon called Pazuzu, who we learn a little bit more about in some of the other entries of the film, or of the film series, I should say. But whether it is the devil, whether it is this demon, I mean, it essentially doesn't matter. It is more about this girl's possession, and what are they going to do about it? So that's ultimately what it tests. It tests faith, and it tests the limits of what we can really with what's within our reach, what's tangible, and what's just completely out of this world. And I feel the way the movie progresses, and again, the documentary feel to the movie does that in such a way that it feels absolutely genuine, and it feels like there's absolutely no shortcuts that they took in this story, which you just don't see in a lot of horror movies. So it's just something that's I think stands as a rare treasure in a movie. So I'm just trying to look through my notes here. What else I have here? I guess that's really all I had here. How long have I been talking about this? Oh, a fucking hour. So anyway, I guess that's really all I have to say about The Exorcist. I guess I kind of did drone on a little bit. But, I mean, really, if you haven't seen The Exorcist, what the hell's wrong with you? This is a perfect Halloween movie, but really a perfect movie to watch at any time. I do feel it's one of the best movies ever made. Hopefully I've tried to explain a little bit why. But just an absolute masterpiece, in my opinion. One of my favorites. One of the best of all time. But I think I'll leave it here. So thanks very much for watching my review of The Exorcist. Stay tuned. One more review to come this Halloween. Have a happy and safe Devil's Night tonight, and stay tuned for more. Thanks for watching.